Hello, Cassie. How are you? Got your work up here. And let's get started. Okay. Now for a branding manual, I think, this is kind of a tough call. Technically, this should have its own cover. I mean, you're giving it a cover for the class, and I get that totally. So, but technically, this is a final and finished presentation. So it should be, 2022 Winter Olympic Branding Guide. And then, Salt Lake City, Utah, projected Olympic date 2022, however that goes. So technically, this should be a cover for the actual professional presentation, not the class. Hope that makes sense. Okay, this looks great. Now, I want to draw your attention to something here, and I'm going to talk about your presentation. And I think it's a mistake to use this gradient right here. I would just use the expansiveness of the image itself. The type works over the image here. Why can't it work over the image here? You see what I'm saying? And if you're afraid you don't have enough image, then just kind of crop it, accordingly. And use that. Presumably, this is a 300 ppi image, so you'll have plenty of information to crop and enlarge, right? Okay, the other thing is that your type here is different. The type for the table of introduction is a lot larger than the actual introduction, which I guess could stand a reason, but at the very least, I would suggest, let me just Command R this real quick, bring out some guides. At the very least, I would suggest that your baseline here on your first line align. So, well, let's just do the cap line then. That'll make it easier then. The ascender line. Let's say the ascender line. Anyways, these should align. This type block should align with this type block here. Okay, you are indenting, it looks like about 5, 6, 7 spaces. 2, maybe 3 is fine for an indent. And that's just kind of decimating your left margin. So I do not recommend indenting that far. Also, take a look at this. I'm going to just leave my cursor right here, okay? Because I'm going to turn the page, and you can see that you're not in alignment. Your type is way up here. So these are just little things that are pointing to the grid. Okay, this page, again, just going to draw another guide here, this one. Let's just draw it right there, and you can see that this should also be in alignment here. You're out of alignment at the top of that page. But this is really good. I think this is great. Again, your indent is just enormous. And then I also want to mention, whenever reversing type on a dark background using white or light colored type, it's really good idea to use sans serif typeface, and also to really open up the kerning and leading to accommodate for the black background. Okay. I looked at this picture, and listen, you're gonna laugh at me, but that's how they practice ski jump. I was like, I wonder how they did that in the pool. It makes sense. Otherwise, it seems like it would be an awfully dangerous sport to practice, but that makes perfect sense. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I often wondered how they practice, and it was one of those things where I should look that up, and I never did, so thank you for sharing that. Okay. Good stuff. Great job. All right. Yes. Again, just alignment stuff. See what I'm saying? Love these pictographs. I think these are the best in the class. I can go ahead and say it. I know they're based on 2002 pictographs, but these are just fabulous. I love them. And okay, now we get to your logo page. I wouldn't muddy up the background page. I mentioned that before. I would not muddy up that background page at all. Another thing I want to mention is that when you're given colors, I'm not real sure what numbers those are, but you always want to give CMYK and RGB values, always. And unless they're spot colors, in which case you would give the Pantone swatch color or name. Okay, but that's really, really very, very important. I love this page. Let's get rid of that background, though. It's muddying things up. These are gorgeous. Why do we have to mess around with that background? And then also, I would not recommend placing type on the vertical like that. Love these pictograms. These are by far the most creative, the best pictograms in class. I love them. Good placement shots, good pre-event, describing the pre-event. Actually, I like the pre-event. I'm sorry to say this, but I like the pre-event signage better than the event signage. I think it's much more interesting. Although that is a pretty darn cool pictogram. Placement shot looks great. Again, I wouldn't do that. I'll type on the vertical. Where do I get one? I'd like to have one of those. I'd like to have one of those hoodies. I want one. All right, now here's the big part. You forgot your image credits. So that's going to hurt you a little bit. I'm sorry to say, but yeah. All of these images, everything, that background image there, these images here, the images of the medals, that background image, all of these, that background image, as well as the outside image, all three of these images, all have to be credited. So I'm not seeing that in your presentation. So that's a little bit of an issue. Other than that, fabulous job. Great class. I like you. I think you're a good student, and I like you because you think. You're a thinker. That's awesome. We've had some good discussions in the discussion board. I think that you were fun to interact with. So thank you so much for making the class that much more interesting. Okay, any questions, comments, concerns, anything whatsoever, please keep my contact information for any future needs here at RimCAD. And great job. Thanks very much.